Take one.
Take one. Oh, we're going?
We're going.
Okay. Hello, lovely humans. Jen Foxbot here with my two wonderful friends.
Yes.
I'm Nicole. I am a student aspiring to go to PA school.
Heck yes, you are. Heck yes.
I'm Saul K. Fenster, and I wrote this book called The Advanced Mechanics of Materials and Applied Elasticity, 5th edition.
Yeah, badass over here. Yeah.
No, my name is Gigi, and I know nothing about science.
I like that you picked the third author. Just gonna. Saul K.
Just
Finster.
gonna
It's a
go
good
ahead.
name.
Yeah, Saul K. Finster. So I'm gonna pronounce the other one.
And who's the one in the middle?
Oh
What's
my
your
God.
name?
This is Jen Foxbot. Yeah, y'all know me. It's
Yay.
good. But if you don't know my background, so I studied some science stuff and now I do work in tech. Fun. So the goal of these conversations is to have a casual discussion that's fun and like very just open about science, tech, engineering, AI, whatever is on the top of folks' minds. And our wonderful filmographer is making the scene look better, so thank you. Normally I'm just filming myself, so I appreciate having some help this time.
Yeah, that is nice.
All right, so yeah, do you two have anything that you want to start off with, or do you want me to like prompt the conversation?
Yeah, I'm open to you prompting, and then I would love to jump in. You know, if we could do like a Venn diagram of sorts, or I don't know.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, how does
absolutely.
bio and tech kind of like?
That's
Ooh,
nice.
interesting.
That's nice.
Interesting. Ooh, okay. Is that, what do you
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in whenever I just get confused, so please.
think? Okay, cool. So the idea was kind of prompted actually by a discussion with the filmographer. Hey, calling you out. I'm not gonna say your name, but where you asked me like, is AI gonna take my job? And I thought that was a really good question because I feel like being in tech, like it's really like intensely focused on AI right now.
Yeah.
But I don't really see us having discussions outside of tech with, you know, everybody else who's like actually doing real jobs.
Yeah.
Like not like tech is a real job, but you know, like we make stuff on the computer and like, you know,
Yeah.
other people are going around like curing diseases and things like that, or like
mean-
building shit.
That makes. I have an immediate question. Just
Yeah.
off the bat. How scared should I be?
Honestly, like not scared.
Not
Like,
scared.
No, I mean, so AI is a tool. It's really similar to like when the mobile phone came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
that
a
I get.
technology that's like that. Like it is totally going to change everyday life just like the smartphone did.
Okay.
But it's not, I mean, like it's a tool, so like it's probably going to be used to exploit people because that's the
Sure.
type of system that we live in.
Yeah.
People in power are incentivized to exploit people.
Right.
But that said, it's not like yeah, it's just a tool. Yeah.
Take over the world.
It's not meant to take over the world. And it's also not at a point where like it's not what people call intelligent. It like is really good at mimicking or like regurgitating information. It's really good at making things easier. So like instead of starting from a blank page, say you have to write a cover letter for a job, instead of starting from a blank page, you can be like, hey, Chat GPT, I'm applying for this job. Here's the job description. Here's my experience, and here's what I want to say. Could you please start a cover letter for me?
Right.
And then it'll go, and it'll spit out some text.
Okay.
You can copy paste into a Word doc, and then you can edit that text, make it more personable. And so instead of taking 3 hours to write a cover letter, it will take maybe a half hour or an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll make things more efficient.
I do like that.
Yeah, and it's very, yeah, it's super helpful with that. And I also think from that perspective too, it can be really helpful in like equalizing the playing
Sure,
field for
yeah.
applying to jobs, because I feel like writing a cover letter is a skill that some people learn and some people don't learn, and it can make a huge difference when you're applying to colleges, grad school, jobs, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think you need to be scared.
Okay. I'm not won over yet. That's another question.
That's fair. Yeah.
I remember when Chat GTP was first introduced to you and I by our friend, And one of the things that we had noticed, because we were asking it questions like, how do I comfort a friend who is like dealing with a sick relative or something like that? And then it had basically regurgitated like a response in like 10 seconds, and it was like so empathetic for something that like
beautiful.
came
Yeah.
from a computer,
Yeah.
which was both, it was really warm to read, and then it was also like it seemed to like it spoke like how we speak to each other. So I think that was what made it really jarring, is like, does this thing have a conscience? But at the same time, it could be interesting in that, like, okay, well, if other people can mimic this type of languaging, or I don't know if mimicking is the right word, but if they can model how they comfort their own friends or anyone in other hard situations by what Chat GTP or GPT is
GPT.
telling them, then like that could be like a good learning model as well.
Totally, yeah. I was talking to one of my friends who's a special ed teacher about it, and I really loved, like, because I'm some friends at work and I made this thing that we called FriendBot, where it was like you can talk to it. I think I made you two try it out. Yeah, it was really silly and fun. But yeah, you can talk to it, and because it like, so you can create a prompt that says like, you are a friendly, helpful AI assistant. And so by saying that like you're friendly and helpful, it will help it maintain like it like doesn't get upset. It just is kind of like very like neutral in its responses. And so my friend who's a special ed teacher was like, oh, that's really interesting. I wonder if I could use it to help teach some of my students better social skills, because they have a hard time engaging with other people because people are squishy.
Right, yeah.
And we get upset
Right.
if someone does something that's like uncomfortable or like makes us feel embarrassed or whatever. And so, but like the robot doesn't get that way, right? So if like they can use it potentially to like practice their social skills on something that like they like won't harm.
Right.
So I think that there are really interesting applications to like help teach those kinds of skills and like help like keep humans from being put in harm's way when we ask people to do that kind of emotional labor.
Yeah.
It's not infallible, and like there was that whole story of like there was some nonprofit that was like a self-help nonprofit where you could like call in and talk to a human to like get help with with
And then
really
they got-
intense
yeah.
issues, and they let everybody go to replace them with an AI, and then
Yeah.
it turns out the AI is not as good of as a human. It's like, well, yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
And there was like a big whoopsies. So you still, I'm really a big very adamant about like you need a human in the loop,
For sure.
but it can still be very helpful. It's like I really like, we've been calling it like augmented intelligence.
Okay.
Like it can augment what
Yeah.
you are able to do.
I have a question
Ooh, yeah.
as the person filming. Hi, my name is Brenna. And this is just like my own ignorance. Who currently has access to Chat GPT and other AI technologies?
That's a great question. What do you like mean by access? Like to use it or to build
Like
it?
if I wanted to, could I just like hop on a computer right now and it's like I
Yeah.
just like get on the internet
Yep, it's free.
and
Yeah.
so it's free. Okay.
So for certain applications, it's free. I should specify. Yes. So you do have to make an account. You have to sign up and give them your email. If you are hesitant about that, I understand. They don't use your email for marketing purposes or to like send you bullshit or whatever. You do have to make an account. I think there's like legal reasons why you have to do that. But once you make an account, you can chat with ChatGPT, or you can use like, so ChatGPT uses the AI model itself is called GPT. And they made, like, before they made ChatGPT, which is a chat interface that has a memory. So in an active window, or like if you close it, they usually will store your previous history. It will like remember the conversations that you've had with it. So in a way, you're like training it for certain types of questions. Yeah, it's based on the previous like model where you just like you create prompts and you spit it out, but that one didn't have a memory. But you can use both. I think ChatGPT is much more popular and interesting and potentially like can be more useful. It kind of depends on what you're looking for than just the like no memory interface with the GPT model. But there are also other models that so the company that created it is called OpenAI. And they also have other types of AI models that are good at different things. So, for example, they have AI models that are good at writing code. So, for like programmers and other people that like to write code, developers, there's a thing called like GitHub Copilot, where you can use it in your VS Code, which is a software program that allows you to write programming languages. And you can like, it's actually really cool because as you're writing, it helps you. So you can either like write a comment and be like, hey, like what is this, like how do I do 2 + 2 in JavaScript? How do I do 2 + 2 in whatever programming language? And it'll like fill it in.
Right.
It's not right all the time, but it's kind of fun.
Can it help you like edit?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Totally. Yeah, so like one thing that I know that people have been using it for, which cracks me up, is like take this email and shorten it, or take this email and make it like nicer. Like I'm really angry right now and I just wrote this response, so like take my response and clean it up because I don't want to send this.
One of the things that I did notice, because like with that intention of like, I need someone to like edit me, or like someone like Chat GPT to edit me, I can see the usefulness in that. As a student, for my peers, I've noticed that there seems to be a lot of like, people are leaning on Chat GPT to not really edit their own work, but to kind of like fill in, do all the work.
Right.
So it's almost like, at what point, it's like, I definitely think of like, yeah, it could be used as a good tool or as a helper. And then what do you think about like people just kind of using it to kind of do their own work, or to like stop their own thinking?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't think it's at the point where you can trust it, to be honest. So like it does what people call hallucinate, like it totally makes shit up. And it also is not always like grammatically accurate, or like sometimes it'll like veer off if you tell it to write a response to this one thing. Maybe it will like go off on a tangent. So like just like academically and from an accuracy perspective, like I would not do that without reviewing it first. And then, you know, the second concern is like, is this going to stop people from thinking? I think that's a really good question, and I don't know if I have an answer to that. Like, I think, like, I remember being in school and having to do busy work, and I always thought that was bullshit, right?
So I have a question for that. Like, if so, say the AI, we stop thinking about a few things. I'm curious, are there people that are like feeling really hopeful about things that we will be able to think about, like our minds will be freed to think about other things, and what are those things?
Yeah. So
And who's deciding what those things are?
And why?
Because I'm a little
Yeah.
scared. I'm personally like extremely afraid of that, because clearly it's like profitable companies that are. I just have questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%, absolutely. So I think like the big hope is that it will free people up to do more creative work.
Okay.
And like to steal the term from video games, like to do less grinding. So like that's that, and honestly, like that's what it's really good at. Or what I've been using it for, and what I found very helpful, is like if I'm having a really hard time solving a technical problem that's very specific, I can ask the AI to be like, hey, like, how can I do this thing? Give me a source. Because honestly, sometimes like, because search engines, if you're clicky clacky in the background, that's my dog doing laps around the house.
Yeah.
Super funny. So like, what I find sometimes with search engines is that because they become so monetized, like you search for something and it's like, cool, the first 5 results are ads, and then the rest of it is like some SEO bullshit that like isn't what I'm looking for. And so in some cases, the AI model is actually better at finding you the information that you need. Especially, they've like gotten better, and by they I just mean like OpenAI and the people that are building these large language models have gotten better at providing sources. And so that like when it spits something out that is taken from a primary source, it'll include the link to that primary source.
Okay.
So it's almost in a sense like a quicker version of Wikipedia. so I think that that's what it's very good at right now. Or I also kind of think about it like eventually like getting to the Star Trek computer where you're like, hey computer, do this task that's like, you know, difficult for me, or like that just makes more sense for a computer to do.
Right.
That said, kind of getting to Brenna's question about like who's deciding this, I think like that kind of gets to the question of it being a tool, right? And like it's coming into a society where like I said, like people are incentivized, the people in power are incentivized to exploit other people because the way that our system is structured, like with very little like a lot of the regulation that we had was gutted in the 70s and 80s, and so now it's really just an exclusive, companies have an exclusive focus on profit. And like that's not a value judgment, it's just like it is where we are, and because of that they're incentivized to cut costs and to like increase prices, or basically like how do you increase your profit margin. And so like I'm hopeful with AI because it is a tool that can make you more efficient and productive, and it can get rid of a lot of the menial tasks. Like a good example is like if you get an email from somebody and it's like, hey, like can you book a meeting like with all of these people, like I have to go and like spend 20 minutes trying to find a time that works for 15 busy people and book the meeting, whereas like an AI could just like acknowledge this and suggest some times, and that's the tools that I'm seeing where we're going.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Question?
you did, yeah.
Oh God. I guess I was wondering, but then I went into what you were saying. What?
That's okay. I can also.
Yeah, keep going.
I don't think I totally answered your question, but also like it's a hard question, right? Because it's like I'm not that person. Like I work around some of these people, and I'm trying to, you know, I think that like it's really interesting seeing this because we do, you know, we are very cautious, and like we are like, you know, the like responsible AI thing has been a very, very big prominent conversation in the last couple of months, where it's really like slow things down until we like flush out those processes. Like
Good.
how do we know that we are not releasing something that will cause harm to people? And to do that, like there are all of these there are all of these review processes that like people making products have to go through.
Oh, so there's like a checks and
Yes,
balances.
there's a really big checklist, and I actually read through all of the regulations, all of the responsible AI policies that Microsoft has, and I was really impressed. I was like, oh, it's not just a business person writing these, it's actually like data scientists, it's people building the models, it's people, and it's legal people who are considering like all of the different ramifications of how a product might affect people. I also will just throw out, not to like promote Microsoft. Also, I do work for Microsoft, but I am doing this not as my day job, so like as a private citizen. But they have put a moratorium on facial recognition within Microsoft, which I was pretty stoked
Which
on.
means no.
Like, yeah, they don't sell it. They don't
Okay.
allow anybody to
Now.
yeah.
Okay. And is there some person that's like, no, stop, like that I haven't heard from? You know what I mean? Like
Well-
some guy was like, this is gonna no.
Yeah, it really like, oh my god, it kind of annoys me because like, so there were like a bunch of black women a few years ago, like Timnit Gebru, might be butchering her name, is like a pretty prominent one, in Joy B. I'm definitely gonna butcher her last name.
Yeah.
Volkowski. Sorry.
I don't know.
But there was like some like prominent black women in AI who were like, yo, it's biased. It's like really
Yes.
problematic.
Yes.
And they like raised the red flag a few years ago. Timnit Gebru got fired for this from Google.
Okay.
She's now running a nonprofit, which is really rad, and doing super good work. And then now all of the wealthy white dudes that made a bunch of money
Okay.
are now being like, oh wait, we should put a moratorium. And it's like, number one, like the black ladies were saying this years ago, and like, did anybody listen to them?
Yeah.
And now you're raising the flag after you've made all of your money.
Right.
and you're asking for a moratorium, which is just not reasonable. So it's like, I understand the concerns. There are concerns, and we should be having these conversations.
Right.
And we should be rigorously testing these models and putting guardrails on them. But asking, like, say something productive. Like, asking for a moratorium is not like going to happen.
Right.
So what can we do?
Right.
And I think that, like, that's the conversation I'm starting to see. I still think that there needs to be more done to, like, to me it still seems very, like, it's still very much in the tech world, and then it's getting bubbled out into, like, the Fortune 500 companies, but I don't really see, like, people having, like, conversations about it, or, like, understanding what it's doing or how they could use it. It's, like, trickling in, but yeah.
I think as someone who's on the outside of tech, like looking in, I think one of the things that can feel scary is that it seems to be like in the early stages, and yet it's capable of doing so much already.
Yeah, totally.
So I think it's like, if this is just like the introduction of what it can do, what are the possibilities as it just gets more refined? And
May I piggyback off that?
Piggy.
I think I, like, just to express a fear openly, like, I think part of it for me is, like, not only are they becoming, like, that technology is becoming more sophisticated, as it becomes more sophisticated, it's becoming more, of course, like, more difficult to understand from, like, just, like, a regular person's point of view. It's like you have a PhD and then you understand the engineering of it. And the people who have that knowledge are the people who created it. Those people who created it are working for companies, and they are not, they're not the people. And to me, in general, like, that's a huge red flag. Like, I don't need tools created by people who have a lot of money, and that I don't have access to the knowledge behind the tools, and that I will never see behind the scenes. That in and of itself is, like, terrifying to me. And, like, the possibility of harm to me feels like infinite. Like, it feels huge and very scary.
How does it feel different than smartphones or, like, the internet?
It just feels like this feels bigger. How think of, like, all of these authors who have written about sci-fi, like, futures and predicted harm on societies. We're coming closer to that, where it's like that technology becomes so, like, increasingly complex and increasingly, like, privatized to the point of it suddenly, like, turning on people. And that is what, like, everybody's written about. Like, I feel like smartphones, yeah, like, it's big, but this feels like, whoa, like, we're talking about overhauling, like, our understanding of how we should educate. We're talking about, like, throwing away, like, a lot of stuff, and we're saying jobs aren't going to be replaced, but I have a friend who feels very threatened right now, who's a graphic designer, and she said that people are getting laid off. And I mean, that is real. And I think, like, I don't know. I just think it's happening. And I, in general, am skeptical of, like, any, like, I'm wondering, like, why we, like, I think similarly to, like, Facebook, Instagram, like, these things that we, like, are advertised as being these, like, positive, and they were, like, these visions for society. And then all of a sudden we see the outcome, and it's been horrible for everyone. Like, we have more mass shootings than we've ever had. It's now, like, an outlet for people to go and, like, to, like, spread hate. Yeah, there's, like, all these hate groups that are popping up, and
it's a conspiracy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Fake news is more prominent than it's ever been, and, like, like, all of these things. And I just want to be like, and it sounds like to some degree companies are doing this, but again, they're the ones profiting. So I'm like, well, good, but slow the fuck down. Slow down. Why do we need any of this? I'm not convinced.
To add to that, I think what makes the one thing that happened with, I think it was Chat GPT, that was like, oh, maybe this is different from like a tool like a smartphone. Is like, I had read an article online where it said like Chat GPT took the MCAT and they just barely passed. But they passed. And then as someone who, as I was reading it, at the time I was aspiring to go to med school, so I was studying for the MCAT. So I was like,
yeah.
Whoa.
I was like, okay, barely passed, which means that
It's still passed.
but it's still
Yeah.
passed. And I was like, okay, so like something can replicate problem solving that we previously thought was just something that a human mind can do.
That's wild.
And I think what scares me about AI isn't necessarily tech, but it's the humans behind it who are making it, because humans scare me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and not all humans are benevolent, and how can I trust that this thing that's thinking like a human is going to think like a good person?
Yeah.
And also like thinking about how does like Chat GPT barely passing the MCAT apply to a field that I'm working to being in? Like are doctors gonna be obsolete? That can't be true. And I don't think they ever should be. I think it should be, like you said, like use tech as a tool, but not as like a person in their hospital room shouldn't be like met with a robot
Absolutely
for like comfort alone.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Although there are some ER doctors where I think maybe ChatGPT would do a better job.
Yeah, I second that. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it makes me scared. I was like code is code, but whoever's writing the code is the person who I don't trust.
Yeah, I think these are totally valid concerns, and like the other thing is like it's what is the data that it's trained on. I think that's that's to me like the biggest thing that is disconcerting to me is like they like took giant swaths of the internet, Reddit, Twitter, all that, and use that as training data. And so like, yeah, of course, like if you prompt it in a certain way, it's going to be racist, misogynist, like all of that, because that's the data it was trained on. And so like, because of that, that's why they've had to add guardrails, and they've had to create content filters, and they've had to like, modify its output. But that's been a very like, it's been a learning process, and it's only in like people being like, hey, like I got it to do this thing, and this thing is really problematic, that they've added those guardrails. So I am glad that like the people that are building these large language models, which is a term for what ChatGPT is, it's like a flavor of AI, a special way to build AI. I'm glad they're listening. I also think that like we need people to be vocal about their concerns, and we need people to be vocal about like what types of regulation do we need, because we do absolutely need regulation, and like we're so behind on tech regulation. Like we don't regulate social media, we don't really regulate any of the tech companies. And like, you know, that like the whole like interview with the senators being like, so Mr. Zuckerberg, how do you make money? And it was just like, who are you? Like, this is, you get to create the regulation and like you didn't do your homework. Super frustrating. So I think like we do have to vote for people that we can trust to represent our best interests. And we have to hold them accountable to do their homework and to like make policies that protect people. Because to Brenna's point, like the people that are building these tools are not incentivized to do that. And like, you know, like so one of the biggest lessons that I've learned as I've gotten older, like I was very like anti-capitalist when I was younger, and I've like kind of come to like understand how it's like, it's not a terrible system, and I think in a lot of ways it can be a really helpful system, but capitalism cannot exist without regulation. Full stop. And like the most conservative of economists will tell you this. I read a book by one of the former chairman of the Feds, whose name I'm blanking on, Larry something, whatever. Anyway, he was appointed by Reagan, like was very conservative, very libertarian, and And like he was very adamant about that. Like you cannot have capitalism unless you have regulation because it devolves into monopolies. And once you have monopolies, they can do whatever they want. And that's kind of where we're at now, where you have these really giant companies that are actually kind of spanning other industries and are monopolies in multiple industries. And that's really problematic because if you don't have competition and you don't have regulation, then they can do whatever they want. They can exploit people and they can create technologies that hurt other people. And like, we're just kind of like shit out of luck in that case. So I really think that like, we do have to put pressure on our politicians to write policies that protect us. Because I do think like it's a tool and I'm really hopeful that we can use it to do things. Like I'm like, 4-day work week.
Right.
Can we just like accept that if we're going to be more productive and efficient, that we can just get rid of the like, because it's arbitrary and made up. Like it's totally made up. 5-day, 8 hours, made up. So can we just like work less and enjoy our lives more? Like we could use this as a tool to do that. We can use AI to, for example, like if we're going towards renewable energy technology, AI is a perfect tool to be able to do that because we can use it to help us balance the energy load. Because if you have like solar and weather dependent systems, you can have an AI tool like help modulate like, oh, we're gonna like it's sunny over here, so we're gonna direct the energy like to the storage system, and we're gonna like you can help with things like that, and you can make it a lot more viable to do difficult problems. So like that's where I want to take it. But like, you know, to Brenna's point, like who are like the people that are in power, like are they incentivized to do that? And the answer is like sometimes yes and sometimes no. Yeah.
Wow.
Also, who's getting the shorter workday? Like what people of
Not
society
me.
get the shorter workday?
Well, and that's where like it has to be from a policy perspective, right? Because if we allow companies to do that, like it's gonna benefit the people that already have power and wealth, and
So
not
it's
the
gonna
people.
increase the gap between the poor and the rich.
It can if we, and that's where we have to have policies, and like that's not gonna happen on the corporate side because like corporations are not incentivized to do that. We have to have the government step in and do its job. Like the reason why we have a government is to protect us.
But the government works with big corporations. Why would they be interested in doing
Citizens
that?
United. So
I guess
here
we're
we are.
fucked. That's terrifying.
Well, no, because like we can vote and like we do have power as individuals, and like when we come together and we decide that these are things that we want and we care about, like the people that we vote for are only in power because we vote for them. And like it's our job to be educated about what their policies are and what they are actually voting for. And I think that that's what people need to be focused on, is like getting people in power in government who will actually work for us. Because right now we have a lot of people that aren't working for us. And that's why I love, you know, like AOC or Warren or whatever, like the people that are very transparent about where their money is coming from. And by the way, that's all public information. Like, well, I should say within reason, but you can look and see who's like donated to people's campaigns. But yeah, I do think that like the Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, has made things really difficult because it's made it easier for corporations to influence politicians. But I remember my mom would always talk about term limits, and I was like, yeah, we probably should have term limits.
On the Supreme
Yeah.
Court.
Yeah, but I don't think, I mean, honestly, like, I don't think we're any more fucked than we have been in the past. Like, you know, like, I just see us humans as, like, little, like, we're toddlers, like, stumbling through the world. And, like, I don't think that there are, like, that many truly evil people. I think there are a lot of greedy people. I think there are a lot of people that are very short-sighted and don't really understand the ramifications of their actions, like toddlers. But I also think that like there are a lot of people that really care, and there are a lot of people that like want to do the right thing. And so it's really just a matter of like having these conversations and then going out and like actually like doing something with that knowledge and voting for people.
so sorry.
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
super
Sorry,
interesting. No. It's super interesting because what I'm hearing is that it ultimately comes down to, because I define capitalism differently, in that it cannot survive without the exploitation of the lower class.
Interesting.
Like, it just cannot, because you have the whole point of capitalism is to have people really successful up here who own, oh, don't quote me, who own the means of production. And the people don't own that. So it's interesting because it feels like almost that there is a chance if AI is going to make anyone's job easier, it'll be the people. Yeah, similarly.
The people at the top.
But yeah, but I also hear you on like that needs to be regulated. But then there's the question of like, what kind of economic system does our government support? We love capitalism, so it's just tough. And then it's tough, interesting. Yeah. But it's interesting to hear people like you who are like, we can use it in a different way.
We can use it in a different way, and like that's what's really frustrating to me is that I left physics to deal with climate change. And then I got into climate change, I got into engineering, and I was like, oh, climate change is not a problem of technology. We have the technology to solve the problem. It's a problem of implementation. It's a people problem. It's an incentives problem. And so that's and then since then I've been really just trying to figure out, well, how do you build better systems?
Right.
And so that it is really interesting because it's easier to build technology than it is to build better systems of people, because people are squishy.
Right.
And complicated. And I think that the goal is to really for each person to focus on what they can control. Right. And what can we do to build better systems, and what is truly out of our control, and not letting the things that are out of our control lead us to despair, because despair is paralyzing.
Sure, yeah.
And focus on the shit that we can do something about.
Right.
And then working together and acknowledging that okay, I can do these things, and this person can do these things, and this other person can do these things. Oh, all of a sudden I can't do shit over here, but this other person can, and now they're doing a thing. So yeah, I think that I think that that's really important, is to figure out where you can plug in and where we need to just let go, because you can't solve everything. There's too much.
Right.
But we each can do something. And so that's voting seems trivial maybe, but it really does make a difference. And I'm just gonna call out King County, which is where I live,
right.
Has a rad representative who has passed a number of really incredible reforms. It's gonna take a while, but we will have mental health care facilities, we'll have public housing. This person is really looking at the root issues and tackling them. And I'm yes, this is why I voted for you. You're doing your job, and you're doing a great job, and I will give you feedback on that on Twitter, because they're great.
Yeah.
Or well, not Twitter anymore, whatever.
Right.
Where everyone's gone from Twitter. So yeah, I think it's fine. It's finding the helpers, and it's okay.
Wow, we're finding our way.
And it's interestingly, as you were talking, I was thinking, when I am doing my own research of what do my representatives, or the people that I am potentially voting for, what do they stand for? It's really easy to get in the weeds. It's really easy to find out where they are getting their money from. And maybe I'll just chat GPT it.
Yeah, bringing it back.
Yeah.
Good night. Good night.
Yeah.
That's really, that's
I love that.
a good
Because I think
full
something
moment.
that can be hard is finding what are the resources that are accessible for me, what
It can take hours
or
to
penetrating through the diplomatic jargon, all of it sounds well and good, but what are you actually doing behind the curtain?
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
Totally.
And that's not something that we're not meant to see it easily on purpose.
Yeah.
So
Right.
to have kind of like a tool to be able to be
To do
like
that.
to do that
Yeah. That's
could
kinda
help, could be helpful to everyone
Yeah.
who doesn't know where exactly to look or what is a reliable resource.
Yeah, 100%. Because it makes it a lot faster, and like instead of spending 4 hours doing research, it helps narrow it to like an hour.
Could it lie? Could like
I totally
could
make
lie?
shit up. But if
Okay.
you ask for that's why I'm like, if
Please
you
don't
say
lie.
like,
Don't lie.
please don't lie. So what I would recommend is when you're looking for that type of information, ask it for a source. Like,
Okay.
where are you getting this in? Like, you could literally ask ChatGPT who donated to AOC for her last campaign.
Yeah.
Include the source of information, and it'll include a link to that source. Now, you will have to verify that, like, so far I've done it for a lot of different things, but you will want to check that the source that it gives you is reputable.
Right.
Like, if it's like Joe's
No.
shitblog dot hotmail dot sorry, I just hotmail under the bus. Joe's blog dot MG, you're like, maybe not, but if
Right.
it's like, there's like nonprofits,
Right.
there are like the government is legally required to publish this information, so like .gov
Okay.
is like a reputable source. So yeah, you do want to make sure that it's linking you to a reputable source, but you can get it to give you a link.
Gotcha.
The other thing I was going to mention too is that like so within capitalism, like, again, the reason why we can only have, like, capitalism only exists if there's government regulation. So like the period of American prosperity that was the greatest, and I will caveat for mostly white men, because but that period was the 1940s to the 1970s.
Okay.
And the oh my gosh, my brain not functioning. The tax, what is it called? Okay, there's a tax on income. If you make over a certain amount of money, it's a special type of tax that I'm blanking on right now. That was like 90 marginal tax rate.
Right.
That's what it's called. So like, let's say if you make as an individual $1 million or more, and this is in like the last time I looked at, so this is like 2019 dollars, so it's adjusted for inflation and all that. An individual making $1 million a year, or a couple making $2 million a year, anything above that amount, so like your third $1 million would be taxed at 90%, and all that money goes to government programs. And so now, like, that's gone. And that's why you have CEOs making 300, 400, 600, 1,000 times what their lowest paid worker is making, which is like, okay, like, are CEOs adding value to the company? Yeah. Is it a hard and stressful job? Yeah. Is it are they adding 300 times more value than the lowest paid employee to the company? Probably not. And so, like, I think that, like, that's honestly, in my opinion, like, one of the biggest things that we need to tackle is reining in executive pay because honestly, like if we have more tax dollars, that's how we build a more secure and more stable society. How do you reduce crime? You provide opportunities. How do you, like, deal with, like, the homeless crisis? You provide, like, you provide opportunities. Like, most people that are homeless have a job. And a lot of people also have mental illness. All that, my filmographer knows way more than me. Anyway, you're just, like, twitching over there, like, you're getting your facts wrong. But yeah, it's just like, like, if we want to live in a society where we feel safe and stable, and where we can, like, do the things that bring us joy, and where the whole, like, pursue life, liberty, and happiness, like, that requires, like, social services, and that is that's the contract that we all agree to in living in society, right? It's like, we agree to live with each other because we can help each other. And like, I could go on whole sorts of tangents with, like, healthcare. Like, we do actually pay for other people's healthcare through insurance. So it's just like, well, why don't we just create a health, like in Germany, you pay 60% of your income in taxes, but you get the value back.
Yeah, for sure.
You get like, you go to the hospital or you go to the doctor and it's free.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, you go get to the dentist and you go get your eyes checked and it's free. Like, you go to school and it's free. So your value, and like, my brother lived there for a while, and it was like, yeah, you pay a lot in taxes, but you see the value of where your money's going. And so like I think that like having a marginal tax rate makes a lot of sense because like what the fuck are you gonna do with that much money anyway? You don't need it. Like you don't need it. And we could even like Elizabeth Warren was proposing like a marginal tax rate on $10 million a year or more, which is like great. Like take your $10 million a year, which is almost $1 million a month.
Yeah.
An absurd amount of money. You will be fine. You can live your luxurious lifestyle. You can do all the things, travel the world, stay in the fancy hotels, feel better than other people. Sure, okay, fine. But also providing like making sure that like we like don't have people living on the streets, or that we don't have people that are working 4 jobs and still struggling to pay rent. Or that like we don't have single parents who like have to choose between childcare and medicine. Like, so I think that like that's where I think that like the AI conversation is really interesting, because it's like, yeah, this is a really powerful tool coming into a society that is broken,
Right.
and we have an opportunity to fix it.
And it's a matter of, like, what about the people who want to keep things the way they are and widen the
Well, there's
gap?
400 of them. Like, there's like a small, there's so small in
1%.
number.
But a lot more money is up there
Yeah,
than down
but
here.
it's like not even,
Throw some
it's
down
like the
our way.
1% of the 1%. It's like literally 400 people. Yeah, throw some down here. Like, yeah, trickle
I
down
mean,
economics
but
is
does
how we
that
do it.
not like emphasize the power? Like it's only
Totally.
that's terrifying to me to hear that there's only 400 people up there, and yet they're able to like completely transform the landscape of society and the future world to come. And like and I guess like something I was thinking about while we were talking is like yes, like okay, let's change policy, but the reality is like one, if we don't understand the tool as the people, then how are we to like advocate for policies to protect us against it? Like it's very hard if we don't, we're not in the know. So
Yeah, totally.
So like it feels to me like it is a responsibility of these bigger companies, and maybe in, you know, with the government perhaps, to make regulations. And the people who are creating these tools absolutely need to go, I mean, it sounds like they're doing this to some extent, but again, it's to their benefit to like minimize the harm and to like to highlight all of the good of these tools, because they profit off of this, so they want this to be successful. So that's really scary. But in general, like like that's what scares me, is we don't have like the people who would be, you know, at the other end of it and potentially the most harmed by these tools are not the ones who know them, and therefore can't really like. So yeah, you can like vote for someone who's like vaguely being like, I care about policy of AI. Like, I don't even know the wording of that. I don't even know. Like, I'm like, what the hell would that even sound like? I have no idea. And so like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point to bring up, and you're totally right. And so I would say like that's why what Timnit Gebru is doing is really, really amazing. So her org just released a whole report on like the potential harms of AI and what mitigations we can do, and like how we should like actually implement these in terms of policies. It's like exhaustive. I did not read the whole thing because it's very long, but I glanced it over and I was really, really impressed by it. And it's not to say that like you need to go and read that. I mean, I think that people should, or at least like glance through and start to get a sense of like how people are thinking about this. Like there are experts in the field that are looking at this, and there are experts that are like either currently or like trying to work with policymakers, and like that's what we need to advocate. Like again, like we can't know everything, we can't solve everything, but like that's where we need to find the people that like are doing that work and just make sure that they have our backing. And that like we are telling like, if I'm going to vote for you, then you need to go and talk to the experts.
Right.
And like and as I was reading the responsible AI standards, there were actually requirements for people building products to go and test their products on the like if your product is going to be used on different types of demographics, like you have to test it on all of those demographics, and you have to get feedback on how it's going to impact them. And then other like third party reviewers will come in and like check your findings basically. So like we're learning, we're stumbling, but like there are people that are looking at this, and you definitely don't have to be an expert to be able to advocate for policies to regulate AI, for policies to protect people, to mitigate harm. But yeah, I would definitely check out Timnit Gebru's work, and I did do my research and look up her.
You said it's a nonprofit.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
and her name. I'm sure if you look up her name in your search engine or
We'll look her up.
ChatGPT, will probably TIMNITGEBRU. And there's other people too, but that's the person I'm most familiar with and I most respect and admire. She's also been just like very vocal and upfront. But yeah, I hope that helps.
It does help. Can I pee?
Are we done?
Yeah, I just
we're
need to
fucking
pee.
done. Yeah, totally. I feel like we can. Yeah, this is a good conversation, and we can. We're not going to solve it, but like I think it's good for people to talk about it.
No, hell yeah! I learned so much just now. What the heck?
So
There's lots.
nice to meet you, Saul K. Fenster.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this back to my boy Ansel
Ansel C. Urgal.
Urgal. We're gonna have a real tough conversation about where we stand.
Why did you pick that book? It's a hilarious book to pick. You're like, what's the most boring book?
Advanced.
So this says advanced.
It
Yeah,
says
advanced because it's advanced.
Gigi is
Excellent.
very advanced.
Gigi is very advanced. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Jen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Brenda.
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for
I feel
hearing me.
knowledge is power.
Knowledge
and I'm
is
happy that we're
power.
having this conversation.
Knowledge,
And
yeah.
hopefully inspiring others to continue to have the conversation as well.
Yeah, or just have a ChatGPT. No, I'm kidding.
That is so funny.
Yeah, make
Have this
real
conversation
friends.
for
Yeah.
me.
Make real
Computer.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Computer. Have an intellectual conversation. Anyway, and yeah, thank you, Brenna, our lovely filmographer, for your excellent questions.
Yes,
thank you for
thank you for-
watching. Congratulations, you made it to the end.
Yay! And we're out in 5, 4,
3,